proper befitting introduction in just a moment. And let's do a little voice part check. Could I have a wave? Don't worry if you haven't decided yet. Could I have a little wave if you're planning on singing the high tenor line? High tenor, Neil, Dick, Joss, Lorna, Catherine, Nick Mulroy, obviously, Yvonne and Dave, Cynthia and Catherine. Anybody else I've missed? And Dick. Fantastic. Okay, good. A good spread. How about the lower tenor line? Second one down. Maybe see how you're feeling. Charles, Carol, David. Now I've got to see if I can remember. Other David, Joel, Philip, and anybody else who I haven't managed to see on screen. And finally, who are my bassi profondi? Where are the basses? Hi, Wolfbrim, Andrew, Mark, David, and David. Yeah, anybody called David. Do all basses have to be called David? Who knows? Great. And Deb, great. Cool. Nice spread there. That's good. Good evening from a still very chilly Joburg. Well, Andrew, I would give a large amount of money at the moment to be in a chilly Joburg, so consider yourself lucky. All right, have I yacked long enough for everybody to come in, do you think? Probably. Okay, so I'm just having a little look. I've got a lovely view here of all of your lovely mugs. Right, okay, so we've got about 57 minutes to look at the top tips from the tenor and bass lines. And with us, we have wonderful Nick Mulroy from I Fagiolini. Now, Nick was born in Liverpool and he's been singing with I Fagiolini for, what was it, Nick, about 20 years?
It's almost exactly 20 years, Tori. It's difficult to believe from my youthful countenance, I know, but it's true.
Amazing. So you've sung the music of Monteverdi around the world in Carnegie Hall. We've just done we did a project in November that was streamed as part of Carnegie Hall's concert programs. So we've got a space in our heart for Carnegie Hall. And you've done something called the Full Monteverdi. Now, tell us a bit about the Full Monteverdi.
So this was a project we did with Robert and I Fagiolini, a slightly off-the-wall staging of the fourth book of madrigals. So this Rimanti in Pace is from the third book, and the fourth book is an amazing collection of 20 madrigals, and we staged it in a restaurant. So the 6 singers, this is long before COVID was a twinkle in the eye, we were spaced well apart in various restaurant buildings, and we sang through the 20 madrigals in a sort of dramatic setting. It was an amazing thing to be part of. We did about 80 shows, so we were really inside the music, and of course the audience was therefore inside the music in a particular way. So it was a special project.
And where's the furthest afield you took that show in? It's 80 performances.
Well, we did it in the Lincoln Centre in New York, and we did it in an aircraft hangar in Bristol, and we did it in a university canteen in Eindhoven. So it was no respecter of prestigious venues. We took it everywhere, really. It was cool.
Amazing, fantastic. Full Monteverdi.
Exactly.
Are there clips of it available on YouTube? We've got the I Fagiolini YouTube channel.
Yeah, I believe there are. There is actually a film of it as well. We made a feature film, which is available, I think, in all good record shops. But there are clips on the YouTube channel which would give you an idea of the kind of the setup of it. It's quite an unusual project, live and on film as well. It was quite different from what we'd done before.
Great, amazing. And now to finish your illustrious list of achievements, you are the Associate Director of the Dunedin Consort, and that's with Ben Parry, right?
Not quite. Ben and Susan Hamilton started it way back in '95, I think it was, but it's now run by a guy called John Butt, who is professor at Glasgow, and he runs that as well. He's the artistic director.
Brilliant. And visiting professor at RAM, which is mine and Jamie's alma mater.
And mine too, yeah. So that's quite a recent bit of news as well. So it's just started teaching on the sort of Baroque vocal course there, yeah.
Great. Well, we're excited to have your expertise tonight.
I'm very excited to be here.
If I'm not mistaken, we're going to start with a warm-up.
Yes. Yeah,
Great.
I think that's right.
Well, in which case, ladies and gentlemen, can we just say a big welcome to Nick Mulroy, and we'll hand over to you, Nick.
Thank you, Tori. And thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. It's so nice to see Lots of very friendly faces I see from the chat from all over the place. So what I suggest how we start is if you want to get comfortable but not too comfortable. So if you want to stand, that's fine. And if you're sitting, then do make sure you're sitting nice and square on both cheeks. So you're nicely rooted to the chair and therefore to the ground. And we'll just start we won't sing for a little bit, we'll just start with a bit of breathing. So I want you to breathe firstly through your noses, just slow, long, slow breaths. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Let's do 3 more of those. Just really make sure each breath is bigger and more wholesome than the last. And on the out breath, really let everything go. Let all the oxygen that you have in you out. One of the things that we forget as singers is that we need to let go of air as well as take it in. Nice slow breath out. 1 more, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Lovely. I can see posture's already improving on my screen. That's lovely to see. Now the next thing we'll do is in through the nose, and at the end of the in-breath through the nose, take an in-breath through the mouth. What this aims to do really is isolate a little bit the space at the back of our mouths. We call it pharyngeal space, but it's really the bit where you yawn, if that's a helpful way of thinking of it. So we breathe in 2/3 of the breath through the nose and 1/3 through the mouth, and that should just open us a bit of a cavernous space at the back. Let's try that. And then out again through the mouth. So in through the nose, last bit through the mouth, and then out again. And we should feel even more physical engagement from down beneath our ribs. Really, let's keep our ribs nice and soft, and let's breathe from down, from in the motor below our ribs, if you like. 2 more of those. Hopefully, that's getting some proper oxygen in you after a long day, perhaps. Out again, and 1 more. Last one, and then let all of your oxygen again. Let's have no excess oxygen in your bodies. Let it all out. We'll release everything that's there. Now, the next thing, just before we start singing, let's say a bit of energy. So I'd like you, if it's not too demeaning, I'd like you to pant for, should we say 10 seconds, like small dogs, not big dogs, quite small dogs. And as you go through, just make the breath a bit deeper. Make sure you're relaxed. Make sure your tongue is soft. Make sure your jaw is nice and soft. Even though you're panting, you're quite free and open. 5 more seconds of that, if you don't mind. 3, 2, 1. That's it. Lovely. Well done. Hopefully that's got a bit of oxygen going. Not too many hyperventilations or not too much heat. Let's do a little bit of consonant work before we move to the vowels. So I'd like just to get the energy going. Can we say 5 Fs? So and now you, and now let's do that one more time and make it even more from this part of your body, below the screen there. I promise you I'm wearing trousers, but you don't need to see them. Really make the consonants and the breath come from your pelvis, really, even from your legs, if you want to feel that. Let the sound always be formed beneath your rib cage. Here we go. 3. One more time, even deeper. 3 and good. Some good physical work there. That's good. Now, keeping our yawny space open at the back, let's just do a couple of little scales. I'd like us to go to the ma, 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 ma. I'd like us to try just a scale up and down. Ma, 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 ma. 3 and ma, 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 ma. And let's just do that one more time. Even softer in the jaw and the tongue, so that we don't let those things get in the way of the sound coming out. There's no tension there if you can. If you're just a little bit more relaxed, and an even deeper sound still. So the same pitch, but that it comes from a little bit lower. Here we go. 3. Ma 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 ma. Great. That looks good. Let's try a little bit now the other way. So if you can roll your R's, we'll have ra 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 ra. Nice rolled R. Again, the consonants. If you're a proper Italian, I think you have your consonants much more grounded and supported than perhaps we're used to in English. So ra 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 ra. Let's try this. Down and then up. 3 and ra 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 ra. And let the last note really ring. Let the sound spin and experiment even with the last note as to where it might go and where it might live in your mouths and in your faces. So one more time. Ra 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 ra. 3. Ra 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 ra. Let that spin and just find a really nice relaxed place for that. Now, I reckon that feels like a reasonable warm-up. Tori may correct me on this.
No, it's lovely. Let's crack on with some singing.
Exactly right. So I think what we'll do is we'll start with, well, the very beginning. It's a very good place to start as the song goes. And I think we'll start with the best part, which is official from Monteverdi, which is the high tenor part. And we'll just sing the first phrase. Now, one of the things about this first phrase is it's really long. It's always, I've started this piece in concerts more times than I care to remember without enough breath, frankly, which is amateurish. So, but I hope you'll forgive me. But one of the things we need to think about before we start is always the quality and the quality first, really, and then the amount of breath second. So let's think about how we breathe in. I want us to breathe into that lovely, lovely yawny space that we had, the sort of and we're looking for a nice Rimanti in pace. Now, I think we should say it once, just so we get used to the sensation of the words, really in our mouths, to the taste perhaps of the words, and really get our chops around those. So, Rimanti in pace. And as you can hear already, we're just singing a little bit. We're going towards singing when we speak Italian. It's good to have a balance of speech and song, I think, for this sort of repertoire. So let's try. You after me, Rimanti in pace. Go. Lovely. And but let's try that one more time and just think about this part of your face. If an Italian man is asking, or a woman is asking for an ice cream, they like some gelato, so the sound is very much in the face, it's very much here. Not like English, which is a bit dull and a bit sort of cloudy, rather like the weather usually is. Rimanti in pace. Okay, one more time. And. That's lovely. I can see lots more cheek action, if that's the right phrase. Lovely. So now we sing. Tori, could we have a D, please?
La dee.
Lovely. So let's try nice deep breath. This sense of the sound being here. And we'll just sing this first phrase in the high tenor part. Tori can perhaps guide me on this. If the high tenors sing this and the other singers sing their part, is that the best way to do it for now?
If you'd like to, if you're feeling excitable and adventurous, you can, if there's a D and an A, you can start your other part and duet with Nick as well if you'd like. Otherwise, just sing what you hear. Okay,
so here we go. Sing along with me. I'll try to be professional and take enough breath. It's quite a slow phrase.
Or if you like, Nick, we can play the track and sing along with the track.
Sure. Yeah. Why don't we do that?
Whichever you'd like. Here it comes. We've got the clap as well, so we've got to practice the clap.
2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Give me a thumbs up if you can hear it clearly.
Thanks, Tori. That's lovely. So as you can hear, there's a bit to say there. Let's think about the words. Rimanti in pace means remain in peace or stay in peace. So this, so often with Monteverdi, you get the sense that he's really sat at his desk and thought, what is the absolute best way to set these words? So he's talking about peace, about silence and softness. So the descending phrase and the complete harmonic stasis, nothing really happening. It's quite bold in a way to start a piece that changes chord once in the first 8 or 10 bars. But there we go. So let's try that one more time. Deeper breath, nice long. Make sure the vowel keeps spinning as you go. Rima, so that every note is full of little notes rather than just being stuck. We don't tend to sit on vowels when we speak. No reason we should when we sing. Let's have another go at that. And just as you go down, don't sit down too far. Make sure you're thinking upwards as well, so that the vowel is nice and aerated from above. Thanks, Tori. Thank you. That's lovely. I think we should try that one more time, and I want us to think about one other thing, if that's okay, when we do this. When we come to do it, this will be the 3 lower parts, which secretly is obviously they're the best parts. But the most important thing really for this bit, as for so much of this sort of repertoire, is that the chord really sits in tune. So in this version, have a sing, and also just have one ear, at least one ear, on the chord, on how your note fits into the chord, and make sure that it's very, very sweetly tuned. Ya bum bum. That very, very quite widely spaced open chord in these 3 parts is really worth tuning. My father would have said, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a good reason. You have to listen twice as much as you sing. So that's something else to think about when we're talking about tuning things vertically in music. So let's try that one more time. Deeper breath, nice open pure Italian vowels, rimanti in pace, and the last thing to do is just really, really tune it very, very carefully. Good luck. Thanks, Tori. Lovely. That's the first. I mean, that's quite an in-depth look at the first 7 bars, but it's such an extraordinary bit of music. I think it brings you into the piece with real economy of means and real has a storyteller's gift of making you want to listen to what comes next. I could really talk about Monteverdi all night, but I shouldn't, because you guys you should practice. Now, I thought the next bit we would do, just to again isolate a small section, is on my page 5. It's bar 50 to around bar 56 or 57 or so. It's a new bit of text. It's actually a new bit of harmony as well, and actually a new bit of in the poem. It's a sort of new camera angle. The camera switches to her. The word Edella means and she, and suddenly we see the face of the female beloved, which we hadn't seen before. So let's just look at what the words mean first of all. It's a good place to start. So Edella, ora da luna e l'altra stella. So, and she now from one and the other. Stella means a star, but it also means eye in this case. Ora da luna e l'altra stella, stellando amaro umore. So she, from one eye to the other, is dripping bitter tears which it's it's a lovely poem actually, but also the way Monteverdi set it, these descending stilando amarara is the sort of musical equivalent of a tear just sort of wending its way down a cheek, which is really, really, really lovely, I think. Okay, so I'm going to sing through the high tenor part again, I think, from bar 50. And I want us just to think again about tuning. Adella, that E flat chord in 51 needs to be very carefully tuned. And then stilando amaro more, these steps down the sort of tracks of the tears, if you like, they need to be very carefully tuned as well. So if Tori could give me a B flat.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick, is there any chance you could nip your audio volume down just a little bit? I think that you are fantastically loud, but it means that it's difficult for people to balance with the audio of the track.
I'm really sorry.
No need to apologise. It's delightful to be able to hear you so nicely.
Is that any better?
And in return, here's your B flat.
Lovely. So it's something like this. And then we get stilando amarumore. So this beautifully chromatic sort of aching line I find extraordinary. Now the other bit that we haven't covered there is the other bit of text, which is ora da luna e l'altra stella. So the baritones or barytenors, should we call them, have that in this section. So let's just sing the baritone line from 51, and I'll just so we hear how the words kind of fit together. Adella, ora da luna e l'altra stella. Ora da luna e l'altra stella. It's a little bit of a mouthful. It's not too fast, but it's fast enough. Sorry, Tori.
It was so nice to hear about the way that you sang that, Nick, was the way that you caressed the L vowel. And that is something that Matteo was telling us to do when we had our Italian language coaching. So it's lovely to hear that coming out when it's sung. Would you maybe sing that for us again so that we can hear exactly?
Yeah, of course.
That L. It's really lovely.
Yeah, okay. Adella, double L there, and then ora da luna e l'altra stella.
There's so much time resonating on those consonants.
Yeah, the Italian is beautiful to sing in for lots of reasons, for vowels too, but the consonants can be so expressive, and when the consonants are voiced, like an L or a Z or an R, we can really enjoy them. If you listen to any Italian singer worth their salt, they'll absolutely wring every bit of juice and sap out of those consonants.
And so satisfying.
So pleasing to do. And I'm sure Robert would say the same thing. You know, you never no one ever went to a concert and said, it was really good, I could just hear the words too clearly, that was the only problem. You know, these are stories, and the stories are made of words. And I think as singers we have so much such luck, such good fortune to be able to deal in words. So we should embrace that, I think. So yeah, I think take your time, especially double consonants. You can really, really take your time on them and enjoy them, enjoy the sensation, and also enjoy technically maybe how they help you place the voice a little bit. Shall we try that, Tori, with the track so we can all join in our particular parts, or do we need a bit more before that? Here we go. Thanks, Tori. I mean, it's just such good music, isn't it? One interesting thing we might want to think about is particularly in isolation. In fact, it's even more pertinent the way that Monteverdi introduces multiple textual points at the same time. as if the brain is kind of holding on to different ideas simultaneously, which of course is what happens. It's another bit of sort of humanity that the composer is able to kind of elucidate, which I really love. Now let's try that one more time. If you're singing the word stillando, let's have lots of double L. Make sure the R vowel is really Italian, nice and open and bright. A teacher of mine used to say that an Italian R is deep, but it also has a kind of an E at the back of it. So it's ay, 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 rather than R, it's ay, 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 ay. So that height at the back of feels like it's where the epiglottis hangs down there, is a really useful, I think, mental image to have there. Let's try that one more time. Good idea, Glyn. Let's have starting notes. That's my fault, I'm sorry. One more time, even more legato, and let's the kind of the high level, most expensive version of this, I think, has a little more shape of the phrase than perhaps I did before. So edella stilando amaro umore. So it goes to amaro and then umore, but away from umore. Thank you, Hugh, for your physiological expertise. Mine isn't up to it. And then the same with ora da luna e l'altra stella. So stella is strong, weak, I think. And the shapes of these phrases are just a lovely way of feeling our way across the ensemble. Yeah. Let's try that one more time. Sorry, Tori.
No, I just said yes, absolutely. And B flat where we're coming up from. So there's B flat.
Thanks, Tori. As you can hear, even when there are just 5 of us singing, with my record producing hat on, the chord in bar 51 and bar 52, it's the same chord, differently voiced, but it's very difficult to tune. So you can be really punctilious with that, with your preparation. So one bit of advice that I would always offer when tuning is sort of rearing its head. Is to think of the note before you sing it. Just prepare yourself physically, of course, but also kind of psychologically to find the note. That there's no kind of slippage where it's not quite right. As you can hear from there, the microphone is an unforgiving mistress. Let's do that one more time. I've just got a couple of ideas, really. One is to just make sure the text in Italian lives right at the front of the mouth. So, ora da luna e l'altra stella. We again feel these, our masks is what we call them, the muscles in the front of our faces, just buzzing really with the text is really good. Ora da luna e l'altra stella is a nice textual thing to get hold of. And the word amaro, let's just talk about the word amaro. It means bitter, like amaretto biscuits, or I'm trying to think of another food stuff, frankly, but I can't. Amaro. So how do we express that? In English, we would probably do a long consonant on the M, amaro. But in Italian, that doesn't work because a single consonant in Italian is very quick, always. So what we need to do, therefore, is make sure that the vowel is expressive. So stilando amaro, amaro umore. Make sure that there's a kind of ache and a bit of I don't know, really, a bit of passion perhaps in the way you iterate that word, because we can't rely on English call habits to be kind of amaro doesn't work. It's not the same word then. So we need nice and long and expressive vowels, always in Italian, but especially with a word like amaro. So 2 things: nice frontal text, whatever text you're singing, and then nice long expressive amaro Let's have that again, could we, Tori? One more time. Thank you.
So as you're coming down, just listen to the E that I think everybody finishes on, and that's how we can get our starting notes when we finish. Oh, and it's a G. I'm just going to do that again, just so that we have a chance to get our notes from the start. You're listening to the G and the upper voices.
Thanks, Tori. It's tempting to let it run on and let you guys have a real run at it, but we will do that later. That's right, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's tempting because it draws you in, doesn't it, with those descending chromatic lines. It's like, don't hit pause. You want to feel how it resolves.
That's it, and you can't. You sort of because it's the same material. You're completely. You kind of know what's coming, but it's still completely compelling. I love it so much. Now, I think that's enough, perhaps, for that bit. The next bit I wanted to look at was the very end, actually, of this first part, if that's okay, from, say, bar 82 or so, if that's all right. Let me just grab my text. So, from bar 82 we have E gli trafisse il cor. So, the text goes on to say, dripping bitter tears, I lumi affisse, she fixed her eyes nei lumi del suo tirsi, on the eyes of her thyrsis, e gli trafisse il cor, and pierced his heart, di pietosissime quadrella, with the most pitying arrows, like darts. So this beautiful image of kind of vision, but also something visual, but also very physical, I think is quite typical of the repertoire, but it's very vivid, isn't it? Let's just do. Is it worth just reading the text aloud to ourselves a couple of times, just so we understand how it fits together? So why not after me? Egli, so GL in Italian, correct me if I'm wrong, is lia. Egli, so lia. Egli trafisse il cor. So she pierced his heart. Trafisse must have some of that expression of sharpness and piercing in there, I think. Poignancy, I suppose, is another word. Gli trafisse il cor di pietosissime quadrella. So pietosissime, the first S is single, so it's voiced. Pietosissime. And the second S is double, so it's long and unvoiced. So di pietosissime quadrella. Pietosissima is a wonderful word. It's most pitying, the sort of superlative of pietoso. So lots of colour in that word as well, I think. Di pietosissime quadrella. So much of this music needs that closeness to the spoken delivery, which I think is so effective. We could. Sorry, I'm just looking at that.
It's so lovely to hear
thanks.
You can put so much emotion into those consonants, can't you? So it's almost like you would if you were speaking it in Italian, and in including that kind of speech-like emphasis is exactly what we're aiming for here, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. And we could almost, I know Robert would agree with this, we could almost experiment how close to speaking, though still with pitch, we could do this. Now, should we look at the bass part from bar 83 with an upbeat? Is that okay? Now, my low notes aren't what they used to be, so I'm going to sing this up an octave for the first time, if that's okay, and then perhaps give the basses a free rein to be more masculine and impressive. than I could dream of being.
Right. You might get a little bit extra for your money because I'm going to start it at the beginning of the system.
Okay, lovely.
Here it comes. I'm actually going to play that again just to give you a run up, and I'll give you those starting notes at the beginning.
Thank you, Tori.
Right? La, da, da. So there's your D minor. A little bit of a run. Ooh, a lot of a running. Here we go.
Great, thank you.
Nick, could I just say that my favourite note in that little bit is that B flat in the bass part. Fabulous.
I was about to mention that very thing, Tori. So it's so right. It's that the basses are really in charge of this section. I feel like they're really. Often Baroque music is really built from the bottom, and this is a really good example. That dissonance between the B flat and the A, what is it, almost two octaves above, is so expressive of exactly what the word is, of this piercing of a heart. The basses can be really quite focused and quite what's the word I'm looking for? Stubborn, I think, on that. Don't allow yourselves to be pushed off that by the sopranos. A real sense of getting on the bus and making sure that the person knows that you're there and gives you enough space to maintain social distance or whatever we need to do these days. So yeah, lots of B flat there, not too much, plenty of focus, not too much vibrato, really, I would say, for those kind of dissonant notes. It's such a lovely colour.
Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, I've interrupted your flow, haven't I, Nick?
No, not at all. I don't have one.
I find when I'm asked to clash with something that's so far away in the texture, the tendency is to feel like you have to be extra flat. And actually, there's nothing to do with how you tune the note that brings out the distance. It's all to do with listening, right?
I think that's exactly right. It's a constant dialogue, if you like, and a constant sense of what fits best or what kind of nudges against it best. It's not a question necessarily of tuning. Matching vowels is a good idea, so that if both those parts sing a really well matched vowel, that's a really strong way of making sure the dissonance really speaks. Because, like you say, it's a long way apart.
Yeah, it seems to me like having a sort of passive-aggressive argument with somebody you know very, very well. You know just how far to push it before they're going to snap. But you just don't go. You go just to that line, but no further.
Look, I'm not gonna. I couldn't comment on that, Tori. But I think that's exactly.
This is what a friend of mine said to me. You know, I've not had any experience.
I'll have to take your word for passive aggression and the uses of it. But no, exactly right. It's this sense of being a real ensemble person, but also really stubborn and sure enough of your own note, really, to make sure it really speaks. And then the next bar, the basses take us somewhere much, much softer. We go from the sort of D minor, A major into C major, and you can, as we go away from sharp keys towards flat keys, we feel the music soften as the words talk about pity and this pietosissime word. So I think a change of vocal colour there is totally appropriate. So we get li trafisse il cor, this beautiful dissonance, and then a slightly softer di pietosissime quadrale, almost a bit of air in the voice, perhaps a little bit of kind of close mic'd. Now it's time for jazz.
The tubato piano that we have in the high tenor is just it's so beautifully handled, and I suppose it kind of sets the character that the bass will then copy in their entry.
That's the idea. Yeah, that the first person who has the words has the sort of responsibility of saying this is how, laying down how we do it. But yeah, I think that much softer colour would be. Shall we try that again? Thinking about how the basses, how we all root ourselves to the bass part a little more.
Fantastic. Just to sing it through a cappella once, if that's all right.
Yeah, of course.
Perhaps at the octave, however you're comfortable, Nick, and then we'll do it with the rest of the tracks surrounding it.
So where would you? Shall I go from 82? Is that right?
Let me just whack it up and have a little look.
The bass part, yeah?
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah. So let's see, where are we? So there's the D.
So this is the bass part, although in a slightly less masculine octave up. Egli trafisse il cor di pietosissime quadrella.
Really nice. And actually, what we could do is, if I just give the high tenor line and the baritone line as well, we could just start from the upbeat to 83, and just sing that one more time. And you can have a little go at duetting with a member of I Fagiolini if you'd like.
Yeah, lovely. Which part? Sorry, Tori. Which part should I sing here? The same
one, exactly the same one more time.
Right.
There'll be a little bit of overlap between the high tenor and the bass at the octave.
Great. And now's one time where we might just really concentrate on matching up vowels and also how the consonants are articulated, how much time each consonant takes. Again, it's just a question of listening and sort of empathetic listening, really. So let's try that. Same place?
Yeah, so there's a D, and then the...
Shall I count you in?
If you want to come in at bar 8, I think it's 83.
Okay, so I'll count myself in. I'll give myself 1, 2, 3, and then join when you can.
Oh, perfect.
Egli trafisse il cor di pietosissime quadrella.
I went for high tenor myself. It sounded great.
Oh, lovely, lovely.
Great. Let's have a little go with the track, shall we?
Lovely.
Very nice, this thing, really. Here we are. Give me a little bit of a run up.
Lovely.
So we've got the D and the A when we get to it.
And then there's just one other note I think I want basses to think about, which is the note on qua in bar 86, 7, 8. Your second note there, the second sopranos have an F, which isn't as kind of violently dissonant as the major seventh we had before, but still needs that sense of, I think Tori's exactly right about a slight passive aggression. You know best here, basses. So just make sure we're on board with you. Great, lots of good stuff there. The one thing that I thought I wanted to mention and didn't was that when we have E vowels, E vowels are very easy to be harsh and bright and sort of very direct, which is lovely in some cases. But in a word like pietosissime, or when we're talking about piercing something, trafisse, we can maybe just soften the edges off an E vowel by making it a little bit more like a German U umlaut, if you like. So it's a little trick. It'll sound like an E. It won't sound like a German vowel at all. But this sense of di pietosi, just a slightly softer, slightly more tightly focused sound than a bright E, which has its uses, but doesn't feel to me quite right for a word as kind of as expressive as pietosissime. So you might want to just think about that. And it's the same vowel, I would say, as the very first word, Rima, rather than re. It's just not quite the right vibe, is it, for the tragedy of a poem like this?
Gentler, softer.
Yeah, softer, and actually, you'd be surprised how well it carries and how well it can blend really nicely. It feels like quite an easy win. It's not a sort of labour intensive thing, but if you bring it forward, it allows these muscles at the front of the face to really resonate.
That's great. That's a really lovely little tip. I'm going to be using that.
No, you're welcome to it. You can just send me the check. Lovely. Now I think we're quite close to having a run through the whole thing. Was that? Do you agree? Sounds
great. I think if we had a run through, then we can sort of do a little MOT and see where we're at and maybe ask some questions.
Yes, perfect. Do you want to? Should I sing along, or do you just want to play the track?
I reckon just to avoid any latency issues, we'll just play the track.
Fantastic.
Just a reminder, guys, we're going to have a full sing through. So we're going to get some starting notes at the beginning, and just make sure that you're sitting well and, join in with as much as you feel ready to at this stage. We're only at the beginning of week 1, so cut yourself a little bit of slack. But it's a nice moment to take account of the bits that are working well for you and the bits that might need a little bit more practice. And as always, we'll start with a grumpy looking Jamie and the clap. Here it comes.
2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Just to remind you, Great, everybody. And I would just remind you that we're going to look at part 1 this week. We'll be looking at part 2 next week. There's no pressure for you to submit recordings and videos of both parts. We'd love you to. We feel that's the best way for you to get a sense of the whole piece. It's a shame really just to do to learn one part without the other. So let's learn the whole thing. But if when push comes to shove with recording, you'd rather just record the first part, then please feel free. There's no pressure to cane it and record both.
Exactly right. But it's really worth saying that it doesn't look like difficult music on the page, this, but I think in its way, it's incredibly challenging. I think for singers, for in terms of vocal chamber music, Monteverdi madrigals are they're sort of the top of the tree. That it's as close as we get to Beethoven string quartets or Haydn quartets. That kind of those real absolute masterworks of listening and of complicity and of delicacy. So it's really worth mentioning that this isn't easy stuff. So don't feel don't feel it should be easy, because we all find it hard.
No, I think it's certainly the most challenging piece that we've attempted to date.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
and I think
of course we've got the additional challenge. Oh, I'm so sorry. I think we've got a little bit of delay here. The additional challenge is that we're all recording on our own, our individual parts. We're kind of having to imagine our colleagues to either side of us.
Yeah, I think that's really a really good point. It's really hard to do it anyway. In the room, sharing the space and the air with your colleagues. Doubly so, if not more, when you're just on your own and sort of having to. It's a kind of theatre of the imagination, isn't it? Really trying to work out what everybody else will be doing. So yeah, don't be discouraged. This is not straightforward, and I think even the very best singers of this repertoire find this one of the most challenging pieces to get really, really right. But it is worth it, I would say.
I completely agree. How long ago do you think you were introduced to this piece, Nick? How many years have you been singing it?
So I was thinking about this today. I think we sang it in the second year I sang Free Fagioli. We sang it in a concert at Dartington, and it nearly fell apart. So that wasn't the best memory. But I remember singing it for the first time and just thinking, I sort of didn't know that music like this existed. It felt like a real sort of epiphany moment. It's just the expressive power of it. As I say, on the page it looks fairly innocuous, really. It's just, it's his mastery of harmonic pacing, of the way he voices things so beautifully, and really most of all, as he said, he makes the text is the mistress of the music and not vice versa. And I think that's really such a valuable part of this music. It's all from the poem, all from the text, all from the emotions within the text. And Monteverdi, I think, is just almost without parallel in terms of text setting and the ability to get right inside a poem.
Yeah, definitely. I've got a couple of questions myself, but do put any questions you have in the chat, guys, and we'll get as many of them as we can in the last 5 minutes. I've got a couple of questions. One is, now those descending chromatic phrases, they're tricky technically, right? And we've all heard the old adage of when you're singing semitones, try to make them as narrow as possible. Now I don't think that necessarily is going to serve us here, do you?
No, I think that's exactly right. Robert has very, very specific thoughts on this, which are to do with note series and harmonic series, and so that some semitones, that's right, should be narrow, especially as we go down. I think it's a slightly old habit from kind of amateur choirs, really, that people tend to go flat when they're under-energized or under-supported. But actually, in terms of sheer music, some of these semitones are really big. Stilando amar. The F to E, I think, is quite a big semitone.
If you're new to the idea of big and little semitones, what the heck are they, and how do you tell which one you're doing?
It's a really good question. And I'm not sure I'm the right person to answer. I'm a real sort of, I'll do this and then I'll see what Robert says.
Yes, quite. But so many, do you know what? I think that there is a great amount of relief in hearing that for some people here who go, how do some people have this amazing instinct to know what a big or a little semitone is other than by groping and hoping?
Yeah, Gosh, there's an expression. Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. And actually, it's not particularly an exact science because it's partly a matter of taste as well. So some groups would prefer pure thirds. Some groups prefer something more towards what we call equal temperament, which is what we get on a piano, which sort of takes the edges off things.
Yeah.
You know.
I think the simplest tip I can give you guys who are going to be recording to a guide track of Ifagilini is copy their tuning just as exactly as you can. Sing along with them, get really zoned in to exactly what they're singing and copy as accurately as possible. Let's not try and over intellectualize this. The guys who are on the recording have sung this piece for many, many years. They're in it and it is in them. And the stuff that Ifagilini are doing instinctively is going to be the perfect guide for you. So you don't necessarily need to know what you're doing, but if you're copying it and you're really actively listening to that guide track and imitating the singers as accurately as you can in your own voice and without trying to sound like them, I'm talking about matching pitch rather than matching tone, which is, how you sing. Yeah. Just listen to them as clearly as you can. And that will do a lot of the tricky, niggly intonation bits for you. That's exactly advice for what we're dealing with right now.
Sorry to interrupt. That's exactly right. It's almost not a finite process. The idea of tuning, I don't think the perfectly tuned performance exists, quite simply. Even when we record things and we have take after take, it will always be slightly approximate. There will be some chords that aren't quite, in the slot, as it were. That's fine, and that's human music making and the human voice, particularly in combination with other voices.
Exactly what we heard from Marin Alsop. Sorry, clang.
Wow. There you go.
But we had this amazing session with Marin, and she is at the pinnacle of music making. And the key thing she wanted us to take away from the session that we had with her was that nothing is perfect. It's not human if it's perfect. And perfection is overrated because it robs the music of so much of its humanity. And I think that's never been more true than when we're singing Monteverdi. I
think that's right. And we forget very easily that the idea of recording is really recent. If you listen to recordings even from the 50s and 60s, they're live in every sense of the word. Some of them are full of mistakes, bad tuning, but they're incredibly exciting. And what we lose when we kind of produce what we now call a studio recording is that sense of something in the moment. And the thing I always feel is, is it Maya Angelou? I never know how you say her name, but she said that people might forget what you told them. People might forget what you did. People will never forget how you made them feel. And music, and this music particularly, is about feeling and about emotion. And to be honest, it recognises that life is messy, and so that music is the same. And actually, the imperfections are what gives it its character and its joy, and that's what gives it the emotion, rather than something that's kind of polished. There are some groups who sing this sort of repertoire who produce records of incredible polish, and I sort of want to turn it over within about a minute because it's just a bit too perfect. That's a matter of taste, but it's definitely, I think, something that's worth remembering. We shouldn't be dealing in perfection. We should be dealing in expression and emotion, I think.
Amazing, and so important. Please listen to Nick. It's so important that we're dealing with emotion here. I know we're at time, but I've got one question from Lorna. For non-Italian singers, and I think you can count yourself in that camp, any tips on making the double consonants look and sound natural? Does it matter if you're gurning in order to get the double stops?
I don't think it matters if you're gurning. I'm sure it's lovely, Lorna. I think the main thing is a couple of things. Firstly, is when you're singing, not to do anything too unnatural with your face, because it's unlikely to help you out. So just keep your face nice and relaxed, nice and soft. One thing that I think is helpful for double consonants is to think of the end of the previous syllable and the beginning of the next syllable having one consonant each. So you don't get too wound up in its a double consonant. It's just, for example, the word quadrella, which is the last word we sang. We think of quadrelle, and then we think of la. So the consonant is long enough, but it isn't a big meal. I would always stand by the idea in Italian. Of course, the double consonant should be expressive, but the vowels are really the thing. I think most Italians will go with me on that. So just end of the previous syllable and the beginning of the next syllable, the same consonant, and I think that will help. And just firstly, don't worry too much about how you look. Everybody looks a bit grim when they sing. Certainly include myself in that. But don't try not to force it too much. Just let it happen and trust that if you do the right length of consonants with the right energy, that it will sound and look good.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of you for joining us. Nick, thank you for the words of wisdom. It's so lovely to hear you sing and to hear how you approach this. So really tricky piece. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you guys again soon. We have to clear out pretty quickly because the sopranos and altos are starting at 7:15. So please pick up your belongings and vacate the room as speedily as possible, and we'll see you all next time. Take care.
Thanks so much, Tori. Thanks everyone. Lovely to see you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Sorry.
Bye, Anne-Marie.
Bye.